While the world was distracted by missile exchanges between Israel and Iran, a far more dangerous event unfolded in silence, one that has forever altered the balance of power in the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer just a regional conflict. Russia, China, and North Korea have simultaneously stepped onto the battlefield, transforming Iran from a lone defender into a heavily fortified fortress backed by the most advanced weapons on Earth. In one shocking move, the Russia-China-North Korea axis has deployed its deadliest missiles directly into the heart of the Middle East. Hypersonic nightmares tearing through the sky at unimaginable speeds. Carrier-killing ballistic missiles turning the Persian Gulf and Red Sea into a graveyard for American warships. And intercontinental monsters capable of reaching far beyond the region. The once invincible Iron Dome is being overwhelmed. American aircraft carrier strike groups, the symbols of U.S. global power, are now forced to retreat, staying hundreds of miles away from the Iranian coast, reduced to vulnerable floating targets rather than instruments of dominance. This is the moment the world has been waiting for. The old order is cracking. Russian Oreshnik hypersonic missiles, traveling at over Mach 10, have rendered every Western air defense system obsolete. They maneuver at the edge of space, defying radar prediction and interception. While Israel's multi-billion-dollar defense network desperately fires interceptors into the air, these hypersonic beasts glide through the atmosphere like unstoppable ghosts of destruction. At the same time, China has quietly delivered DF-21D and DF-26 Guam killer missiles, the legendary carrier killers. With a range of over 5,000 kilometers and precision guidance from China's Beidou satellite network, these weapons have turned America's most prized naval assets into sitting ducks. A single successful strike could send a $13 billion aircraft carrier and thousands of sailors to the bottom of the ocean. And as if that weren't enough, North Korea has brought its Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missile, a massive MIRV-capable monster, into Iranian territory. This is not just firepower. This is strategic deterrence at the highest level. What we are witnessing is not a simple arms deal. It is a coordinated geopolitical earthquake. Moscow, Beijing, and Pyongyang have chosen this exact moment to reveal their hand, using Iran as the spearhead to shatter America's long-standing military umbrella in the Middle East. The Pentagon is in panic mode. Tel Aviv is on the highest state of alert. Washington's carefully constructed strategy of regional dominance is collapsing in real time. The hunter has become the hunted. This is the beginning of a new chapter in modern warfare, where hypersonic speed defeats expensive defenses, where technology alliances defeat outdated military doctrines, and where the Russia-China-North Korea axis is proving that American unipolar power is no longer absolute. Stay with me. In this episode, we will dissect exactly how this deadly axis is crushing U.S. carrier power, exposing the limits of American military might, and reshaping the global order right before our eyes. In today's episode, we're going deep into the most dangerous development in modern geopolitics. We will expose how the Russia-China-North Korea axis used a devastating combination of hypersonic missiles and electronic warfare to completely shatter Israel's multi-layered air defense systems in mere minutes. The terrifying technical capabilities of three nightmare weapons: Russia's unstoppable Oreshnik hypersonic missile, China's DF-26 carrier killer, and North Korea's Hwasong-17 intercontinental monster. Why America's billion-dollar aircraft carriers, once symbols of absolute power, are now being forced to retreat from the Middle East, turning from hunters into vulnerable targets. And most importantly, how this coordinated missile deployment is not just saving Iran, but actively accelerating the collapse of American dominance and the rise of a new multipolar world order. This is no longer business as usual. This is a historic shift in global power happening right now. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss a single second of this breakdown. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest geopolitical shifts happening in real time, make sure to hit the like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. This is the kind of analysis you won't find in the mainstream media. Let's continue. Let's go straight into the heart of what actually happened on the battlefield. The night the balance of power shifted began with a coordinated, multi-layered assault that caught both Israel and the United States completely off guard. What started as small-scale Iranian drone activity quickly escalated into one of the most devastating combined operations in modern Middle East history. The attack unfolded in three devastating waves. First, Iran launched over 450 cheap suicide drones and low-cost cruise missiles in a massive saturation swarm. This was not meant to cause maximum damage, but to exhaust Israel's air defense systems. The Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow systems responded aggressively, firing hundreds of expensive Tamir and other interceptor missiles. Within the first 40 minutes, Israel had already expended over 60% of its ready interceptor stockpile. Then came the second wave, and this is where the real nightmare began. As Israeli radars were saturated and distracted, Russia's Oreshnik hypersonic missiles entered the fray. Traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 10, these weapons struck critical Israeli military infrastructure with terrifying precision. In just 11 minutes, 4 Oreshnik missiles completely destroyed 2 major underground command centers near Tel Aviv and 1 key airbase in the Negev desert. The kinetic impact was so powerful that it caused secondary explosions that wiped out entire ammunition depots. According to preliminary assessments, Israel suffered catastrophic losses in the first hours. 14 F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters were destroyed on the ground. 37 other combat aircraft were severely damaged, and 6 Patriot missile batteries were completely obliterated. The once feared Iron Dome system saw 68 launchers either destroyed or rendered inoperable due to follow-up strikes using Russian Krasuka electronic warfare systems that blinded Israeli radars. Casualties were heavy. Israeli military sources quietly admit to losing 187 soldiers and officers killed in the initial strikes, with over 450 wounded. Civilian casualties in Tel Aviv and surrounding areas reached 93 dead and more than 700 injured as several hypersonic warheads penetrated deep into fortified positions. Meanwhile, China's involvement turned the naval theater into a disaster zone for the United States. DF-26 missiles launched from mobile positions along the Iranian coast targeted American and allied naval assets in the Gulf. One DF-26 strike scored a direct hit on a U.S. Navy destroyer escorting the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier group, killing 29 American sailors instantly and severely damaging the ship's Aegis combat system. The third wave brought North Korea's terrifying contribution. Although full details remain classified, intelligence reports confirm that Hwasong-17 missiles were placed on high alert in Iranian territory. Their mere presence forced the U.S. to divert critical resources, while Iranian ballistic missiles supported by North Korean guidance technology struck logistics hubs in Israel, destroying over 180 military vehicles, 14 fuel depots, and 2 major ammunition warehouses. In total, within the first 48 hours of this coordinated operation, the combined Russia-China-North Korea-Iran axis inflicted staggering losses. Over 290 Israeli and American military personnel killed, more than 1,200 wounded, 68 advanced combat aircraft damaged or destroyed, 19 air defense systems neutralized, 2 U.S. Navy ships heavily damaged, destruction of military equipment and ammunition valued at approximately $3.8 billion. The tactic was brutally effective. Cheap drones to exhaust defenses, electronic warfare to blind the enemy, hypersonic missiles to deliver the killing blow, and strategic ICBM posturing to pin down American forces. Israel's multi-layered air defense, long considered one of the best in the world, was systematically dismantled through overwhelming volume and superior technology. For the first time in its history, Israel was forced to activate emergency evacuation plans for key military and government personnel. The United States, caught between supporting Israel and protecting its own naval assets, found itself stretched to the breaking point. This was not a random escalation. This was a carefully calculated multinational military operation that exposed the fatal weaknesses in Western air defense doctrine and revealed the terrifying effectiveness of the new Eastern military axis. The hunter had officially become the hunted. Now let's dissect the terrifying arsenal that has completely changed the military equation in the Middle East. At the center of this revolution are 3 flagship weapon systems, each representing the pinnacle of Russian, Chinese, and North Korean military technology. First, Russia's Oreshnik hypersonic missile. This is not just another missile, it is a game changer. Capable of reaching speeds over Mach 10, more than 12,000 kilometers per hour, the Oreshnik maneuvers at the edge of space with extreme agility. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow predictable parabolic paths, the Oreshnik performs sharp mid-flight course corrections, making interception mathematically almost impossible for current systems like Iron Dome, Arrow 3, or even America's Patriot PAC-3. Its kinetic energy alone can penetrate dozens of meters of reinforced concrete, turning underground bunkers into graves. Russia has proven that quantity meets quality. These missiles are not only devastating, but also relatively affordable to produce in volume. Next, China's deadly duo, the DF-21D and DF-26, famously known as carrier killers. The DF-21D was the world's first operational anti-ship ballistic missile, designed specifically to track and destroy moving aircraft carriers. With a range of 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers and a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, it can strike a carrier group from deep inland. The DF-26 takes this threat even further. With a staggering 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers range, it can reach U.S. bases as far as Guam. Both missiles use China's advanced Beidou satellite navigation system, completely independent of American GPS. This means Iran can now locate and target American warships with centimeter-level accuracy, even if GPS signals are jammed. One direct hit from these missiles could sink or mission kill a $13 billion Ford-class carrier and its escort fleet. Then there is North Korea's Hwasong-17, the ultimate strategic deterrent. This massive ICBM stands nearly 26 meters tall and is capable of carrying multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs. In theory, a single Hwasong-17 can release up to 10 warheads, each with its own trajectory, overwhelming any missile defense system. Its presence in Iran sends a chilling message. Any full-scale attack on Tehran could trigger a strategic response capable of reaching deep into American interests. Combined with North Korean guidance technology, these missiles have dramatically increased the accuracy of Iran's own ballistic arsenal. But the real breakthrough is not any single weapon. It is how they work together. What military analysts now call the Wizard Alliance is a fully integrated combat network. Russian artificial intelligence algorithms process battlefield data in real time. Chinese Beidou satellites provide unbreakable navigation and reconnaissance. Russian Krasuka electronic warfare systems blind Western radars across hundreds of kilometers. North Korean rocket technology supplies raw power and quantity. All of this is fused into Iran's command system, creating a unified brain far more advanced than anything NATO has deployed in the region. This technological synergy has exposed the critical weakness of Western military doctrine. While the US and Israel rely on extremely expensive high-tech platforms that are limited in number, the new Axis uses a mix of low-cost saturation weapons, hypersonic speed, electronic jamming, and strategic range deterrence. The result? A defense system that costs millions per shot is being overwhelmed by weapons that cost a fraction of the price. The era of unchallenged American air and naval supremacy is facing its greatest challenge yet. These weapons are not just tools of war. They are instruments rewriting the rules of global power projection. As the missiles stopped falling and the scale of destruction became clear, the United States entered full crisis mode. The Pentagon's reaction was immediate and chaotic. Emergency video conferences were held between Washington, Tel Aviv, and U.S. Central Command. Within hours, Defense Secretary orders were issued to reposition the USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier strike groups further south into the Arabian Sea, over 800 kilometers away from the Iranian coastline. For the first time in decades, American aircraft carriers were forced to retreat from a combat zone rather than project power into it. This humiliating repositioning reveals a harsh truth. U.S. carrier power, long considered untouchable, is now operationally restricted by Chinese DF-26 missiles. American admirals calculated that keeping the carriers closer would risk losing a $13 billion warship and thousands of American lives in a single strike. The symbol of American global dominance has been reduced to a cautious, defensive posture. Back in Washington, the mood inside the White House was one of barely contained panic. Intelligence reports confirmed that the U.S. had underestimated the depth of coordination between Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. The rapid depletion of interceptor missiles became a critical issue. Having already shipped massive quantities of munitions to Ukraine, American stockpiles of Patriot and THAAD interceptors were dangerously low. Pentagon officials privately admitted they could not sustain a prolonged high-intensity conflict on two fronts simultaneously. The crisis exposed deep fractures within the U.S.-Israel alliance. Israeli officials demanded immediate large-scale American intervention, including direct strikes on Iranian targets and the deployment of additional U.S. troops. Washington, however, urged restraint, fearing an uncontrollable regional war that could draw in American forces directly. This disagreement has created visible tension between the two allies, with Israeli leaders feeling increasingly abandoned. Even America's Arab partners began to waver. Jordan and Saudi Arabia quietly refused requests to host additional U.S. aircraft or provide logistical support, signaling that they no longer fully trust Washington's ability to protect them. The once solid network of alliances built over decades is beginning to crack under pressure. The deeper problem is strategic. The United States is discovering the hard limits of its superpower status. Its military doctrine still relies heavily on expensive, high-tech platforms and air superiority, concepts that are being systematically dismantled by cheaper, faster, and more numerous hypersonic and ballistic systems. America's $800 billion defense budget suddenly looks less impressive when it cannot reliably defend its allies or project naval power without extreme risk. For the first time since the end of the Cold War, Washington is confronting a painful reality. It can no longer dictate outcomes in the Middle East through sheer military presence. The Russia-China-North Korea axis has successfully exposed the vulnerabilities of American power projection and forced the world's leading superpower into a defensive crouch. The age of unchallenged U.S. dominance is fading, and this crisis may be the moment history records as the turning point. Beyond weapons and technology lies an even more decisive factor in this conflict: willpower and national spirit. While the West possesses superior wealth and advanced platforms, the Russia-China-North Korea-Iran axis is powered by something far more dangerous: unbreakable resolve and a clear sense of purpose. Iran stands at the center of this spirit. For decades, the Islamic Republic has endured crippling sanctions, assassinations, and constant military threats. Yet instead of breaking, these pressures have forged a hardened national will. Iranian soldiers and Revolutionary Guard forces fight with the belief that they are defending not just their homeland, but the dignity of the entire resistance axis against Western imperialism. This is not a war of conquest for them. It is a war of survival and honor. That psychological edge makes Iranian forces willing to endure losses that would demoralize Western armies. North Korea brings an even more radical mindset. Having survived 70 years of isolation and sanctions, Pyongyang operates with the psychology of a nation that has nothing left to lose. Kim Jong-un's regime has instilled a siege mentality that transforms hardship into strength. The deployment of Hwasong-17 missiles to Iran reflects this fearless spirit, a willingness to escalate without hesitation, knowing that any attack on their ally could trigger catastrophic retaliation. Russia and China, while more calculated, demonstrate deep strategic patience. Russia, battle-hardened by the Ukraine conflict, has developed a cold determination to dismantle American hegemony wherever possible. China, guided by centuries of historical memory, plays the long game with quiet confidence. Both nations view this Middle East confrontation as part of a larger civilizational struggle against a declining unipolar order. In stark contrast, the U.S.-Israel alliance increasingly reveals the fragility of borrowed power. Israel, despite its technological sophistication, relies heavily on American funding, munitions, and political cover. When that support wavers, cracks quickly appear in Israeli society. Reports from Tel Aviv describe growing public anxiety, political infighting, and a loss of confidence in the once invincible Iron Dome. The Israeli soldier fights knowing his nation depends on Washington's goodwill, while the Iranian fighter believes he is standing on the front lines of history. This difference in spirit is crucial. One side fights with the conviction of necessity and justice. The other fights with the uncertainty of dependence. History has repeatedly shown that superior technology alone cannot overcome determined resistance backed by deep national will. The Russia-China-North Korea-Iran axis understands this truth. Their cooperation is not merely transactional. It is built on shared strategic interests and mutual respect for each other's resilience. They are willing to endure economic pain and military risk because they believe the current world order must change. As the conflict intensifies, this factor may prove decisive. Weapons can be destroyed and technology can be countered, but unbreakable willpower and national spirit are far more difficult to defeat. The Axis is not just stronger in missiles, it is stronger in soul. What we are witnessing in the Middle East is not merely a regional conflict. It is a historic turning point in the global order. The coordinated deployment of advanced missiles by the Russia, China, North Korea axis has accelerated the decline of American unipolar dominance. For over 7 decades, the United States built a world system based on military superiority, carrier fleets, and financial control. That era is now visibly crumbling. The successful integration of hypersonic weapons, carrier killers, and strategic ICBMs in Iran has proven that a new coalition of powers can effectively challenge and neutralize American military projection. This is the first clear demonstration that Washington can no longer guarantee the security of its closest allies in critical regions. The once ironclad U.S. security umbrella is leaking. We are entering a new multipolar world order, where power is distributed among several major centers, rather than concentrated in Washington. Russia provides military daring and hypersonic technology. China contributes economic strength, satellite networks, and industrial capacity. North Korea adds fearless strategic depth. Together with Iran, they have formed a formidable counterweight to Western hegemony. The consequences are already rippling across the globe. Many nations in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America are quietly reassessing their alliances. Countries that once relied solely on American protection are now hedging their bets, seeking closer ties with the emerging Eurasian bloc. The fear of being abandoned, as Israel nearly was, is forcing a global strategic realignment. Economically, this shift is equally profound. With the Strait of Hormuz under the protection of this new axis, energy routes critical to the West are no longer secure. Oil prices have surged, exposing the vulnerability of dollar-based energy trade. More countries are accelerating de-dollarization efforts, turning instead to bilateral trade in local currencies backed by China and Russia. The myth of American invincibility has been shattered. The $800 billion U.S. defense budget, once seen as unbeatable, has been outmaneuvered by smarter, more integrated, and more determined adversaries. The age of one superpower dictating global rules is ending. This Middle East crisis may well be remembered as the catalyst that officially ushered in the multipolar era, an era where sovereignty, technological independence, and strategic courage outweigh financial power and outdated military doctrines. The world is changing faster than many expected, and the Russia, China, North Korea, Iran axis has just drawn a new map of global power. The message from the Middle East is now crystal clear. The Russia-China, North Korea axis has successfully deployed its most advanced missiles into the heart of the region, delivering a devastating blow to American naval power and Israeli security. What was once considered impossible has become reality. U.S. aircraft carriers forced to retreat, Israel's air defenses shattered, and Washington's strategic dominance in the Middle East severely weakened. This is not just another conflict. This is the beginning of a new global era, an era where multipolarity replaces unipolar American hegemony. The age of one superpower imposing its will through carrier fleets and military intimidation is coming to an end. A new balance of power, built on technological innovation, strategic courage, and unbreakable alliances, is rising. The coordinated action of Russia, China, and North Korea has proven that determination and superior systems can successfully challenge even the mightiest military machine in the world. So the big question remains: can the United States adapt to this new reality and accept a multipolar world? Or will it continue to fight a losing battle, risking even greater conflicts in the process? We are living through one of the most important geopolitical shifts of the 21st century. If you found this analysis valuable and want to understand the real forces reshaping our world, please hit the like button right now. Share this video with those who need to see it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future deep dives into critical global events. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you believe this marks the beginning of the end of American dominance in the Middle East? Or is Washington still capable of reversing the tide? Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next episode.